Well, hello there. It's really a pleasure to be here and talk about my least favorite subject, which is myself. But I'll tell you just briefly. I worked in the TEDx world at near the end of my professional career, and I got involved in TEDx in 2011, and in 8 years, I did 20 different events, and then I kind of retired from that, but I've stayed involved in the TEDx world because I think there are some wonderful people doing some absolutely marvelous things. One of those people is Kat Haber, and Kat is
Mm.
hails out of Alaska, and she introduced me to a program called Moonshot Pirates. And she said, "Randy, I think you'd be good at this." And I'm thinking, Moonshot Pirates, what the heck is this all about? But I went along with Kat because I trust her, and she connected me with some folks in Austria, believe it or not. We are in a digital age where distance doesn't mean what it used to mean. I talked with them, and they had a program that they were starting for young folks ages 15 to 19, somewhere in there. And they recruited people like myself and Kat and a number of other TEDx curators from around the world to meet with those folks every couple of weeks over a period of 5 months. And the idea was to interconnect people across international boundaries, and to hopefully out of that create some young adults that were ready to do some great things in our world. Well, I did that, and when I posted that I had finished it after 5 months and meeting with the young folks that I met with a young lady from Austria, a young man in Nigeria, a young man down in Paraguay in South America, and another young man in Morocco. And I posted that I had finished that, and Mark said, "Randy, I'd like for you to talk about mentorship." And as I sat back and I thought about mentorship, what it really is connecting.
Mm.
And it is, a guy like me or a person sharing and connecting with others and helping them deal with challenges in life. Well, that took me, and this is, I'll stop here in a second, but that took me on another journey intellectually to a book that I had recently read by David Brooks called Second Mountain. And I'll summarize that in just a thumbnail. He talks about the me generation where we're all focused on me and myself and I. What am I getting out of this? That's the first mountain. The second mountain that some of us aspire to is the we mountain. That's where we're focused more on a vocation rather than a job for me. We're focused on a spouse and a family. We're focused on philosophy and faith and community. And as I thought about that, I thought mentoring really relates to
Mm.
helping people go from mountain one to mountain two,
Mm. Mm.
and to go from being me oriented, which often teenagers and youngsters are, to we oriented and to wanting to do good things in the world. So that's a little bit about my journey and how I end up being here with Mark talking about mentorship and what we can do to make our world a little bit better.
Randy, when was the first time you were consciously aware that you were in the role of a mentor or you were in the role of being mentored?
I don't know if I could say the first time, but I'll tell you about a young man here in Lincoln that I'm active in Rotary. I don't think we mentioned that. That's one of the things that I do. And I'm also active in public broadcasting, public media. And I got to know a young man. Actually, he was the director, the television director for my second TEDx event. And I'm a television director also. So he told me he was very nervous because I'm looking over his shoulder and so forth. But we got to know each other during that time. And then he directed the second event, and we got to know each other a little bit better. And then we sat down and had a cup of coffee, which I drink an awful lot of coffee, but it's a good way to connect with people. And he said, "Tell me more about Rotary." And I said, well, it's a place where people from different vocations, different kinds of organizations, you got business people, you got educators, you've got people in nonprofit world, where we get together once a week and we try to do better things for our community. He said, "Oh, I'd like to be part of Rotary." So that was a mentoring experience for me where, I talked with Ryan about, he's in his 30s and he just wanted to plug more and plug into the community more. So that's one. And trying to think back to others dating farther back.
Did you have mentors as you were rising up through your broadcasting career?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, the first person I think I would call a mentor to me, well, I had some in high school, but the first one that really had a deeper meaning was an English professor in college. I almost failed his class, and I went in to talk to him, and I said, What's the matter?" And he said, "It's really simple." And he gave me kind of a simple formula for writing, but we developed a personal relationship out of that. And I ended up spending evenings at his house,
Hmm.
and I got to know him and his son, and he eventually married one of my favorite professors in college, and the two of them were involved in my life many years, and she hired me then to work at an organ. I'm getting way off on a tangent
That's
here.
okay. I'm going to bring you
So
home here, Randy. Um,
that
that's my
college
job.
professor
That's
really
my
played
job.
an important role, and then at work. Um, I worked for a gentleman that was a lot like Walter Cronkite. He was the news director at a TV station where I worked in Indiana, and he was our on-the-air anchor man. And he took me under his wing. Here I was, a college student, learning how to read on the air and to write stories and so on. And he just very gently guided me in my development of my career.
One of the things I want to see if we're on the same page on this. I ran my background, listeners know my background's in computer animation software here in Santa Barbara. And for many years, we ran an after school program for at risk high school
Mm.
kids who wanted to get in technology and had never really done well in teams and didn't do well in organized activity, but we could attract them with the computer animation, right? And the thing that I learned that was successful for me was that I wasn't their boss. I wasn't their parent. I wasn't a teacher. I probably was some symbol of authority, but I did not project that at all. I was there to clear things out of the way for them to be successful. And to this day, I still hear from, oh gosh, I don't know how many kids we had run through that program. And there's something that's unique to me about the relationship with a mentor, whether I'm the mentee or I'm doing the mentoring, which has to do with that person who's working with you is freely giving of their time, expertise, their network, their wealth, their wit, the wisdom, because they honestly want you to be successful. There's literally nothing in it for them. And those are very hard to find. But when you do, that's the ideal. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I have two thoughts related to that. One, anybody that knows much at all about Nebraska football knows the name Tom Osborne. He's a great man. He's still alive and still active, but he's no longer coaching. He's a little bit older than I, but he created a program here in Lincoln to get football players originally plugged into young folks in Lincoln called teammates, and that has grown to where adults are screened, but then they connect with a young man or young woman, and they go into the school once a week and meet with that young man or woman. And I did that with a young man who moved here from Cuba with his mother, and I'm pretty sure that I made a very nice positive impact on his life. But the second thought that takes me to is Brene Brown wrote a book, Braving the Wilderness,
Mhm.
and she's talked about how we have geographically and politically and even spiritually kind of sorted ourselves into like-minded groups. So here's these people here, and these people here, and these people here. And mentoring is a way to begin to bridge those gaps that
Mm,
we have, or I've heard them called silos. Here in the
sure.
Midwest, we have a lot of silos, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And finding a connection across those boundaries can help bring us back together. And that's something that I'm very, very driven to do, is just connecting. And one of my favorite quotes is, "It's hard to hate somebody if you know them really well." And the best way to get to know somebody is through a mentoring process of connecting and talking and relating.
One of the things in paying attention to mentoring is there's an opportunity for the mentor to have some self-reflection to find out what's in their tool bag, other than just, you've walked the steps, but specifically, what skills do you have to offer? So I would suggest to someone who's wanting to be a mentor, kind of take a minute and think, like, what are those things? I know for me, in getting ready for my TED talk, and I again will thank you publicly for driving from Lincoln to Fargo to sit in the audience. So I knew out of 4,000 people, there was at least two friendly faces, my wife
But
being the other one.
you forget I live in the Midwest, and we think nothing of driving that many miles. It didn't take me a whole lot longer than it would for you to go from South LA to North LA.
Oh, but people who want to go from LA to Santa Barbara figure out they got to book a hotel room, they got to pack a bag. It's just going to be, oh my gosh. But it was getting ready for that. I did an inventory of, like, what are the lessons I've learned? What are the ideas that I have that I felt that the world needed to hear? And it kind of is the same thing around mentoring, as it is that thing that I came upon really crystallized a lot of how I view the world. And I've gone on since that talk. This is I did unplanned, but I've turned that into a way to help others, to mentor this whole
Mm.
see what you think idea. So I'm curious what you think about that if we were in a room of mentors, which would be fun, by the way. How would we go about that skills inventory?
This is going to sound like a commercial, and it isn't. I don't get paid by Gallup, but they changed my life with their
Huh.
Strengths Finder. For years, I tried to bolster my weaknesses. And then somewhere near the end of my professional career, I took the Gallup Strengths Finder, and it told me that I was a connector. It told me that I was an arranger, and I can't name the other top strengths, but and if you think about it, Mark, those are the very things that you need the most in
Yeah.
producing a TEDx event. You need to connect with people,
Yeah.
and because you don't pay your team, you don't pay your speakers, you need to connect with people, and you there's just a myriad of arrangements. And so along that line, that's the kind of thing that you can do as a mentor, rather than say, you know what, Randy, you're not very good at numbers. You need to work on budgeting and things like that. You come alongside and say, Randy, you are a real connector. And why don't you take that power and do something? That's how I got involved in TEDx world. I'm a TV producer, and I'm a connector, and I believe in education and the power of ideas. I sat down at lunch with a friend of mine, and he said, "You know, Randy, I think Lincoln could use a TEDx event."
Mm, mm.
That's all it took. I went on the website 2 days later, and I filled out the application, and that was back when the applications went through rapidly. And within 8 or 10 days, I had the license. And then I just went about calling my friends and saying, "Hey, help me out here." So,
It feels like that. That we keep going back to TEDx, but it's a perfect environment for mentoring because there's usually a couple of people at the top, or maybe one person at the top. We got to interview 100 of them for my show. But everyone that came together, they had all opted into this, and they understood what the rules were. They knew who the leader was. They knew what the goal was, and they knew what the measurement along the way. So it's kind of gamified that whole process. But everybody, if you were to go back to those teams and talk to them, they learned so much from each other. And which leads me to I think one of the biggest roles for the mentor is to be a role model.
Hmm. Hmm. There are various types of mentoring. It can be work related. It can be personal. I've mentored youth. It can be part of, in your community, and being that role model that helps point out strengths and encourage the people in their strengths can really help make a difference.
Randy, I am sure there are a bunch of people on this planet who would, if you've maybe forgotten, who would probably look back and say, boy, that guy sure helped me out. Randy, thank you so much.